What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Marvel Movie Mondays. Now, I know you guys, Mondays are always dreadful and probably the most hated day out of the week. But today is Marvel Movie Mondays, you guys. And today we are talking about Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 was released in 2010, 2 years after the first Iron Man movie. I'm not sure how much time has taken place between Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, but we can assume that not much, it hasn't been too much time. We can just assume that. I don't think it's ever been stated. I'm pretty sure there's some wiki boards or something out there that can prove when this film takes place. But I know that this film comes off the heels of the first Iron Man movie. And there's a lot of things I like about this film. Iron Man 2, I'm not sure. It seems in the fandom it's kind of universally either disliked, not hated. It's either universally disliked or it's kind of like universally middle of the road, in the middle of the road, whatever people say it is. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I actually enjoy this film. I don't think it's the greatest MCU film, nor is it the greatest MCU film in Phase 1. But I enjoy this film. I always have a good time with it. And one thing I've discovered is that the more and more I rewatch this film, the more and more fun I have with it. I think there's a lot of positives, and I'll kind of like try to keep this video as short as possible. So I'll just talk about the film. I'm not going to talk about everything. There will be spoilers, of course. But it won't be 100% play-by-play. So this film picks up, like I said, sometime after the events of the first film, where Tony Stark has made it known that he's Iron Man. This has put some scrutiny on Tony because of the fact that now there's a face to the identity, there's a face to the name, and the government is basically pressuring him to turn over his suits because they see them as weapons, they see them as property, and Tony Stark basically decides that he's not going to do that. He created the suits. He is the sole proprietor of them, so he's not going to turn them over to the government. He doesn't see them as weapons. He says that he's basically done their jobs for them, makes a fool out of them in court, which is an enjoyable scene. And they bring in Rhodey, who in this film is replacing Terrence Howard, played by Don Cheadle. They introduce him in this film to try to testify kind of against Tony. They bring in Justin Hammer to testify against Tony. And ultimately, like I said, Tony pretty much makes a fool out of this whole hearing, this whole trial and everything. So we meet Anton Vanko, who is slowly, who is dying. And what we learn later in the film is that Anton Vanko was like a partner, or he worked with Howard Stark, Tony's father, in some capacity before the events of the first Iron Man film. And for whatever reason, I can't remember if they said he was a KGB agent or spy or something, and he flipped. Something happened where he fell out with he fell out with Howard Stark, and he was sent back to Russia, where he basically, okay, that's what happened. So they basically kind of like say that he should have got some credit for the arc reactor, that it wasn't Howard Stark who came up with it. They came up with it like 50-50 or however, and he gets deported back to Russia, where he has a son, Ivan, who is going to be the antagonist of this film. So he dies like 5 minutes into the film, and Ivan, his son, who is going to be Whiplash, basically decides, since he can't get Howard Stark, he's going to destroy Tony Stark and everything he built. So we fast forward just a little bit, and Tony starts to discover that the palladium that is powering the arc reactor in his chest, acting as his heart, is poisoning him. Slowly it's poisoning him. So what I like about this film is that there's a lot of consequences. There's consequences from the first film of Tony announcing that he's Iron Man. There's consequences to him being Iron Man physically because it's poisoning him. The arc reactor is poisoning him. And I imagine that when he's overexerting himself as Iron Man and using more outlets, more power and stuff, I imagine that that's killing him even quicker. So Tony's pretty much going through rough times. And they never really outwardly stated in the film, but I think it's kind of implied that the reason Tony basically has Pepper take over as CEO of Stark Enterprises. And I think that, like I said, it's implied like Tony knew he was dying and he wanted the company to be in good hands if anything were to happen to him. Pepper was always his assistant, was really like the only friend outside of like Happy Hogan that, Tony's ever really had. She really cares about him deeply and everything. We get Happy Hogan back in this film. Jon Favreau reprised the role. And just a side note, you guys, Happy Hogan for me, and this doesn't even have much to do with this film, Happy Hogan to me is one of my favorite non-superhero characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I don't know what it is. Maybe it definitely got to credit Jon Favreau a little bit. And, he directed, I think, the first Iron Man film and this one, I believe. I think the only one he didn't do was Iron Man 3, which was directed by Shane Black. I think he did direct this one, too. There's something, it's just a breath of fresh air with Happy. Just like a sidebar, spoiler alert, for those who haven't seen Avengers Endgame. Post Tony Stark, I still enjoy to see Happy in the Marvel movies. Like, I really dug what they did with him in Spider-Man Far From Home, where he wasn't really Peter Parker's mentor, but kind of like his chaperone. That is a role he had kind of in Spider-Man Homecoming. But in this one, it's more like he cares about Peter and they kind of share their mutual grief for, what happened to Tony and all those good things. So I just love the character of Happy Hogan, you guys. I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there because I feel like Jon Favreau doesn't get a lot of credit. I know he's never the main character of any of the films, but he's such a refreshing, recurring character that I enjoy. I just had to put that out there. Add to that, you have Samuel Jackson coming back as Nick Fury. He has more of a role because in the first Iron Man, he was just post-credit scene. So he has more of a role in this film. Still not in the movie that much, but he has an appearance in the film. This film gives us Natasha Romanoff, a.k.a. the Black Widow. She basically comes in after Tony makes Pepper the head of Stark Enterprises. She basically kind of becomes the new Pepper. It's kind of like what they are going for in this film. She's like the new assistant. And what they don't know is that she's really observing Tony Stark to see is he worthy to be a part of the Avengers Initiative. We'll talk about more of that later. Add into that, you have Justin Hammer, who I think Sam Rockwell doesn't get enough credit for Justin Hammer. There's a lot of people who don't like his portrayal. I actually enjoy his portrayal. I just think it's a little conflicting because at times it seems like he's trying to be the big bad of the film, but ultimately he's not really trying to kill Tony or bring much harm to him other than to bankrupt his company. Well, not really bankrupt his company, but to beat out his company. So I think that's where it's a little bit conflicting with Justin Hammer in the film. So Tony basically discovers that he's dying, appoints Pepper as the new CEO, hires Natalie Rushman, aka the Black Widow, to take her spot. There's more pressure for Tony to turn over his suits and all of these things that are happening. And what happens is that Ivan Vanko creates not really a suit, but like a prototype using the arc reactor, and it with the whips, aka the Whiplash, where he gets the name from, even though they don't call him that in this film. And it's powered by the arc reactor. So they're at like a Formula One racing event where Tony was driving. He destroys Tony's car, and we're introduced to the Mark V armor, which is, I'm not gonna lie, you guys, still 10 years later after the film. This film came out like 10 years ago. The Mark V is still one of my favorite armors. It's the suitcase armor where Tony sticks his arms in. The suit just comes onto his body. I just dig the suit. I remember the trailer for it, and they were playing the Iron Man song by Black Sabbath. I just enjoy this suit and this little battle that they have. So Tony takes him out pretty effortlessly, and he's thrown in jail. And ultimately, Tony goes to visit him in jail, and Vanko implies that he knows that the Palladium is killing Tony because it's powering his heart and all that good stuff. So he basically never took on Tony to kill him, but to prove that Iron Man wasn't invincible, which I think he proves that point, that Iron Man can't be touched, because we see that that's not true. So Tony gets a little bit of, I guess, advice from who he didn't know at the time was the Black Widow on what she would do. This was her last birthday and everything, and she implies to him that she would do whatever she wanted with whoever she wanted to. So Tony's drunk in the Iron Man suit at his birthday party, acting a fool. And I love this scene because they're playing California Love by Tupac and Dr. Dre, and it's just a party scene. And what happens is that Pepper is kind of like trying to de-escalate the situation and get Tony to come out of the suit and not do destructive things, but Tony starts blasting glasses and windows and all kinds of crazy stuff and watermelons and all kinds of crazy stuff. So Rhodey's forced to basically don the Mark II armor from the previous Iron Man film, Iron Man 1. They have a fight where if I had to rate it, I would say it's a draw because they both kind of get their butts whooped. So Rhodey confiscates the Mark II, and I believe it's Nellis Air Force Base. Shout out to the Air Force, you guys, because for those of you who seen my intro video, I am an Air Force reservist. I've done a couple of tours, so shout out to the Air Force. That's one of the things I love about Iron Man is that, with Rhodey being a colonel in the Air Force, and I just shout out to my to my team, you guys. So I like that. I like that how they incorporate the military and the government and all those cool things. I like that. And I believe, like I said, it's Nellis Air Force Base where Rhodey turns in the Mark II, and that's when they bring in Justin Hammer to weaponize the Mark II, and it's basically going to become the War Machine armor later in the film. Spoiler alert. So Justin Hammer actually breaks Ivan Vanko out of jail, makes it look like he died in an explosion, staged all these things with his resources because he's a billionaire too, I guess. So all of that happens, and they basically team up because Justin Hammer wants to make Iron Man look obsolete. He wants to put Tony Stark out of business. He doesn't want to kill the guy, but he does want to harm him in terms of like putting his company out of business so that he can become the number one weapons contractor and supplier and all those things. So I really like that. Again, like I said, I enjoy Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. Thought he was pretty cool, funny. I like his cockiness. I think he's kind of like a polar opposite to Tony Stark. And they're a lot alike in a lot of ways, but he's willing to do some things that Tony isn't willing to do. So I like that. And ultimately, that's when Nick Fury comes in, and we see Nick Fury, and he reveals that, Natalie Rushman is really Natasha Romanoff, a.k.a. the Black Widow. So there's a little banter between those two, which is pretty funny. And they kind of get him back into work because the poisoning is like killing him. It's all up his neck. They give him some kind of antidote that doesn't cure him, but just takes the edge off. To try to get him back to work, and basically what happens is he gets confined to his own compound, his house. He can't really leave. We see Phil Coulson again, which I love Phil Coulson, you guys. I love that he was such a big piece. He wasn't ever really in the film that much, but he was always in the background, and he's like the glue that brings all the Avengers together in the Avengers film. So it's good to see Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson again. And basically that's when Nick Fury tells Tony that he knew Howard Stark pretty well. Howard was one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D., which we will come to discover in Captain America the First Avenger and the Agent Carter TV show and all these other things where Howard Stark was in the background. So I like that aspect. And so Tony basically comes to understand that even though his dad was always hard on him, his dad did love him. He finds a video diary that his dad made about how that ultimately that Tony is his greatest creation, which is like a little heartwarming scene between the two. So Tony basically has to come up with a new element to get rid of the palladium, to come up with a better weapon, to power the suit, to power the Iron Man arc reactor and all that good stuff. So That's what he's working on. And then we see Coulson come in, who gives him a bit of a hand. And then he's like, Tony was working on a prototype Captain America shield. So that's a cool little Easter egg. And I remember thinking at the time, like, even knowing in the back of my mind that the Avengers was coming, like, we had only seen Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk. And I was just like, man, are we ever going to see Thor? Are we ever going to see Captain America? Because I'm tired of just the Easter eggs. I was so eager, you guys, for this. Like, I waited for this for a long time. So we see that little Easter egg. And then Coulson lets Tony know that he's going to leave, go to New Mexico, setting up the events for the first Thor film. And I talk about that with the post-credit scene at the end of this film, at the end of this review. So Tony is able to create a new element, which acts as not really a cure, but it basically a replacement to the palladium. So he's not getting poisoned anymore. He gets a call from Vanko, who, as I said, Justin Hammer made it look like he died earlier in the film, and he didn't. So, there's a little banter between Tony and Vanko, and that's when Tony uses the new element and powers the arc reactor, and Jarvis is a little worried about it, so he just does it anyway. And we get to the Stark Expo, which we had seen earlier, like the first scene in the film. And that's where they're presenting the War Machine armor and all the drones that Ivan Vanko had worked on for Justin Hammer earlier in the film. And Iron Man arrives donning I believe it's the Mark 6 armor. I'm pretty sure it's the Mark 6. And which is very similar to the Mark 4, you guys. There's some slight differences, but it's mostly kind of consistent, kind of the same. And that's when Vanko starts his grand scheme, his grand plan, where he hacks the War Machine armor, which Rhodey is in. He hacks the drones. They start attacking people. They start attacking Iron Man. So we get this big battle where Tony has to start taking out the drones. He has to start taking out, he has to try to stop Rhodey, but also figure out how to help. So Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow, and Happy get a pinpoint on where Vanko is. So they're going to go try to arrest him, take him down. So I really like their little banter back and forth. She's kicking butt, taking names, and he's struggling with like one guy. It's a hilarious scene, you guys. If you guys never seen this movie's hilarious. I think it's one of the funnier movies in Phase 1 with the most comedy. And the Black Widow is able to hack Rhodey's suit, get his suit back. So they have to take out the remaining of the drones. Really nice battle scene. And they take out all the drones, and then here comes Vanko. And only what I can describe as it looks kind of like the Ironmonger suit that was piloted by Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie, played by Jeff Bridges. It looks kind of like that, but it looks more Russian in appearance. It's bigger. He has the whips coming out of his hands. It still has the arc reactor and everything. So this is one of the biggest downsides to the movie. They take him out in like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And it's a play on the scene earlier in the film where Rhodey and Tony were fighting when Rhodey had the Mark II armor. They lifted up their hands and blasted the repulsors at each other, knocking each other out. And they basically take him out that way. And what happens is that he has like a self-destruct mechanism in the suit and is basically going to take himself out with all of them. And they escape, Tony and Rhodey do, and he dies. All the drones had the same things. They had the self-destruct sequence in them, so those get set off, and Tony has to save Pepper at the last moment, which he does. So that's pretty good. And ultimately, the film ends with Pepper and Tony kind of like starting a relationship. They're, kissing, and then Rhodey making a couple jokes about it, which I enjoy. I'll touch on that a little bit after we get through the review. And then it really ends with Tony sitting down with Nick Fury. And as I said earlier in the film, unbeknownst to them, Black Widow was kind of like in disguise, pretending to be somebody else, Natalie Rushman or whatever, some regular person. And she was basically gaining intel on Tony to find out if he was worthy to be a part of the Avengers Initiative. So, in her estimate, Tony Stark isn't worthy to be a part of it because of his erratic behavior, narcissism, all these things. But Iron Man is worthy to be in it. And Tony makes a joke about how can you want me but not want me, which I think is pretty funny. Awesome dialogue between him and Fury. And the movie ends and we get a post-credit scene. Oh, before I get to the post-credit scene, Senator Stern from earlier in the film, who had the back and forth with Tony in the courtroom scene, there was a part earlier in the film where I think it was around the Monaco incident. He had a news report, Senator Stern did, because Senator Stern comes back and plays a small cameo in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So when Tony saw the newsreel of Senator Stern, he's like, oh, that guy ought to give me a medal one day. And that's the last scene of the film where they're presenting Rhodey and Tony with awards for their heroism. And he puts a pin on Tony and pricks him with it. And he says something along the lines of, Mr. Stark, isn't it funny how a little prick can hurt, or something like that. It's hilarious, you guys. It's a funny scene. Highway to Hell is playing in the background. So it's just a funny scene. I enjoyed it. And ultimately, you guys, the post-credit scene, before I give it my final review, my final ranking, the post-credit scene sets up Thor because I believe it shows Coulson in New Mexico in the desert with the Mjolnir, the hammer, Thor's hammer, in the middle of the desert, and it just cuts to black right then and there, setting up Thor. That's why I said earlier Coulson set up the events of Thor, because he does play a bigger role in the first Thor movie in New Mexico. I'm not going to spoil it here. I talk about it in my Thor video, which will be next Monday. Yeah, next Monday we'll talk about Thor. So ultimately, you guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I want to rate this movie as really good. I really do. But I can't rate it as really good because there are a lot of other really good movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that this film is just not. It would be unfair for me to say really good because this film is not on the level of some of the other MCU films that are not A tier but are B tier. And to say that Iron Man 2 is B tier, if that's you guys' opinion, I think it's fair. But for me and my ranking and how I'm going to do my reviews, I don't think it's fair summary for me to say that Iron Man 2 is really good, which would be like a B plus on my scale. I would have to rank it somewhere, and this is going to be a first for me, you guys. I would have to rank it somewhere between really good, in the middle of really good, and meh. Because I think it's a little bit better than middle of the road. I ranked Incredible Hulk as meh, which is like a C plus to me. I think this movie is kind of like B minus. Because for all the negatives that I have with this film, and my negatives really, because I'm not, you guys, I skip to the beat of my own, tune sometimes. I do agree with a lot of other rankings. A lot of other people rank this as like second worst film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it's probably bottom 5, but it's on that scale of films that I enjoy this film. I can rewatch this movie. There are 2 other movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of which I'm going to get flack for when I do my overall ranking, that I just think they suck as movies. I have a hard time rewatching them, and I only rewatch them for the sake of these videos. Iron Man 2 is not in that discussion for me, you guys. I have a fun time with this. I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man / Tony Stark. I think that I almost enjoy his performance in this film more than in the first film because it seemed like with the first film, it's his first outing, so he's going to stumble a little bit. There's going to be some missteps. But with this film, it almost felt like Tony Stark in full swing before joining the Avengers, which is kind of what this is. So I enjoy his performance in this movie more than I do the first one. I think he's a little bit more funny. I think that there's more jokes. I like the back and forth. I think there's more... like in the first film, he's a little bit more snarky and cynical. But I think in this film, he's a little bit more snarky, but a little bit more comedic. And I think that's a tone we would follow with Tony Stark and most Most of his appearances after this, with the exception of Civil War, which I'm not going to spoil here. We'll talk about that when we get to that movie. But that's what I think, you guys. I enjoy this film. I like Tony Stark. I like Gwyneth Paltrow and the role they went with her and the relationship with her and Tony. And this is a controversial statement, you guys, and please don't hate me for this, but I personally am in the minority of people on YouTube, on the internet, who feels like Don Cheadle, to me, is better as Rhodey than Terrence Howard. I love Terrence Howard. I could sit here and tell you a bunch of Terrence Howard performances. I love Four Brothers, plenty. I've seen a majority of his films. I don't enjoy him as Rhodey that much. I mean, I think he's a great actor, and I liked what he brought to the role, but I think Don Cheadle, to me, is funnier in the role. Serious when he needs to be, but funny and cynical. It's like with Rhodey, Rhodey to me is one of the most underappreciated superheroes slash background characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With his, we don't get as much of a story with him as we do with Tony Stark, but I like what they did with him. I really think that in like Iron Man 3, he's a lot more serious but funny at the same time. Civil War, I think same thing. There's something about the way Don Cheadle plays the role where there's a balance of seriousness and cynicism and comedy about him. I just enjoy it, you guys. The same way a lot of people are not going to sit here and say, well, Iron Man 2 is a good movie because of Happy Hogan. I enjoy what they do with the supporting characters of Tony Stark. Happy Hogan, Pepper Potts, Rhodey. I just enjoy that. There's something about his performance and giving him more shine in this film than the first film, and Age of Ultron and Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame. I love Rhodey, you guys. I love War Machine. I like Don Cheadle. So Don Cheadle, if you ever see this video, I think you're awesome. I just want to put that out there. A lot more Nick Fury in this film. Samuel Jackson always rocks the house. Natasha Romanoff, Scarlett Johansson. I think until Captain America, the Captain America Winter Soldier came out, I think this was like one of the more solid performances by, Black Widow, where it wasn't her film, but she did get a lot of time to shine. I really liked it. A strong introduction. I talked about Nick Fury. I talked about all those things. Yeah, those are all the positives, you guys. My only negatives with this film, that why I can't say it's really good, and why I say I would give it like a B minus. So like good, which is not official on my my ranking scale. My ranking scale is awesome, really good, meh, disappointment, and complete garbage. So like I said, B minus. So I would put it somewhere in meh and really good. So I would say this is a good film, you guys. I would say it's a good, enjoyable film. And the crazy thing about it is I think that this film is a testament to the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is awesome. Because in Phase 1, this is probably one of the weaker films for me. I think that all the other films, this and Incredible Hulk, are probably the weaker films of Phase 1. The other four are awesome. Or really good. Somewhere around there. So I think the fact that I'm telling you that one of the worst, universally worst 5 MCU films is still an enjoyable film you should watch is a lot. It gives a lot of kudos to Disney, to the directors, to Kevin Feige, to everybody involved in this, because like I said, this film is like a misstep compared to some of the other more awesome MCU films, but it's still an enjoyable film. I can still rewatch this. Me and my wife have rewatched this film a couple of times. I enjoy it, you guys. Robert Downey Jr. is awesome. All the actors in this film, awesome. Even the little things like Captain America's shield and setting up Thor. Like, I want to put this movie at a B plus, at really good, but you guys, it falls a little bit short just because I think I didn't dislike Mickey Rooney's performance. Mickey Rourke. I didn't dislike Mickey Rourke's performance as Whiplash, but I just think he was like, his motivations were great, but he just wasn't a great villain. His motivations, like I said, to want to take down Tony, all of that, it was good. It's just something about it where he falls short. Them taking him out in 2 minutes at the end of the film, that sucks. And then there's not a lot of Iron Man in this film, you guys. Like with origin stories, that's always gonna be okay to not have too much. But there's like this movie doesn't have a lot of action. You have the beginning scene where Tony's jumping out the airplane, landing at the Stark Expo. You have the fight between Tony and Ivan Vanko at the raceway, which is kind of like a 5-minute scene, maybe 3-4 minutes. Then you have Tony and Rhodey fighting, which is, again, kind of a short scene. And then you have the climax of the film where you do get a big drawn-out fight. It just sucks that Whiplash gets taken out in 2 minutes. So with all of those negatives, you guys, and the pacing, I just have to say that this is a good film. It's enjoyable. A lot of people are going to disagree with me. A lot of people are going to say that this is not a good film. And you guys are open to your opinions. Like I said, we're all different. I enjoy this film. Every time I rewatch this film, I kind of like it a little bit more. Now, I'm not telling you guys that one day I'm going to rewatch this movie and on my 20th time, I'm going to say that it's really good. This is going to stay in between that meh, which is like a C, C+, in between that and really good. So it's going to be like a B-, like a 80%, something like that. Maybe even a 79.5 to some people that are purists or, whatever. But I have a fun time with this film, you guys. It's like everything that I enjoyed about the first Iron Man film is here with like a fresh coat of paint. It's like the same car with a fresh coat of paint. That's the best description I can give this film. But it falters. I think that Vanko could have been a better villain than Obadiah Stane, Ironmonger, but ultimately he's not. His motivations are better, but there's just a dosage of things that happen in this film, you guys, that ultimately hold it back from being really good. So, you guys, what do you think? Join me in the comment section on my Facebook, you guys. I always link my Facebook and Instagram accounts to my videos. So just let me know, you guys, what do you think? If I'm wrong in your opinion, let me know, guys. I'm fine with that. We're all fans. We love these properties. Let's discuss them, without sending each other death threats and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for checking out this video. What do you think? Is this a good movie? Am I wrong? What do you guys think about, Don Cheadle? Because, again, I've seen so many people say that Terrence Howard was a better Rhodey. I beg to differ. I think it's Don Cheadle. And like I said, I think that this film, if it gets a couple of more things right, I think this is better than the first Iron Man film, if it does. But because it doesn't, Iron Man is better than this film. So I enjoy this film, you guys. Like I said, really good, really enjoyable. You can watch this with the family, with the wife, your significant other, with friends. This is an enjoyable film. And join me, you guys, next Monday when I talk about another one of my favorites in the Phase 1, and that is going to be the first Thor movie starring Chris Hemsworth, which came out in 2011. So that'll be next Monday. The Monday after that, we'll be talking about Captain America, the First Avenger. And the Monday after that, 2 weeks from today, we will be talking about The Avengers, the movie that did what we all did not think it could do. So you guys stay tuned. Join this discussion. Let me know, you guys. And like I said, I think in my last video, The Incredible Hulk, once I'm through all of Phase 1, 6 movies, the first phase, my next video for Marvel Movie Monday, instead of going into Phase 2, which will be Iron Man 3, that Monday after the Avengers, I'll do a ranking of the Phase 1 of films. And then the week after that, we'll go into Phase 2 with Iron Man 3. So you guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know, are there other things you want me to talk about? Other films? Other franchises? Because you guys, like right now, I'm working on Marvel Movie Mondays, which is the MCU, Halloween Wednesdays, which is going to cover all the Halloween films, into Halloween 2018 because we are still waiting for the Halloween Kills, which is the sequel to Halloween 2018, and Friday the 13th Fridays. So you guys, let me know, is there any other franchises or any other single movies you want me to discuss? Thanks again, you guys. I have been Chris with Movie Talks with Chris, and I will see you guys in the next video.